when you see a cricket ball, there are, there's a bowler, there is a batsman, there's a fielder, maybe in terms of wicket-keeper or something like that, and there is somebody called as an umpire. Now believe me, if you observe this game or any game, each and every ball would have a different mathematics. Because from the bowler, the ball is leaving him and going away from him. But for a batsman's point of view, the ball has left the bowler and it is coming to what? To the batsman. Now do you visualize what kind of mathematical difference would it be? It's not just simply plain simple game. And for a wicket keeper, it is not the striking of the ball, it is more of what? Catching that particular ball. So the entire physics and the entire mathematics of his observation differentiates from that of what? Batsman. The batsman will have to come into a line to strike the ball straight, wherein there will always be a case, condition, an opportunity of a bowler that he will be decepting the continuity. If you study, calculus, there is a continuous, theory of continuity. He is going to deceive that continuity either by a swing or by a spin or by changing the pace of the ball. For the umpire, he has to look to the ball at any given point of time, and if it strikes somewhere at the legs, he'll have to take a call on this. Now why I'm talking about these? For all these four different factors, the observation is the only key. Now if you start observing that ball by the way of striking the ball, then you become a better batsman. If you start visualizing the movement of the ball in terms of what? Throwing it, creating a deception, you become a better batsman. And if you start catching each and every ball and looking to the change in the trajectory of the ball, you become a wicket keeper, and so on and so forth. There's a whole lot of power of observation, and observation makes you live into a particular subject, discipline, skill, or whatever it is. So there are a whole lot of mathematics which varies. Tell me, what comes to your mind when you see the first logo? Does a tire comes into mind? Does a snake comes into your mind? No, there's only one specific thing which comes into your mind because you have lived with this logo. You didn't read this logo, you didn't study this logo, you didn't learn this logo, you lived with this particular logo. What comes into your mind when you are visualizing an object like this? Plain and simple. Now, if you are looking to this particular diagram, will burger come into your mind? No, because you haven't read it, you haven't studied it, you haven't learned it, you have lived with this particular object. The best example of living into a thing is when you drive. Nobody taught you driving. There were no classes conducted for driving. There were no, of course now the tests are there, but we all know. There were nothing, which happened related to read, study, something related to learn, but most of the things and most of the times when you are driving, you are basically believing on the observations which you have. See, believe me, if I go by the theory, if I go by the book, and if there is a truck going in front of you while you are driving a car, if you bring all the pictures of Doppler's effect or relative velocity and things like that, in order to decide whether to overtake the truck or not, it will take you at least 30 minutes to decide whether to overtake or not, which you do not do. You do it in just nanoseconds or microseconds, and that is where my point is that you start living into driving. It's a skill set. He was talking about passion about guitars and everything. When you become somebody in playing that guitar, you never look to the strings, you never look to your fingers where they are going, because you have started living in that. There can be whole loads of examples of living and then learning a system from that. A chef never calculates that this much amount of salt is to be put into a dish. Ask your mother. She never calculates actually. She never weighs 1 ounce or 1.5 ounce of material to be put in, and she's the best cook because she never read. Maybe she might have read on YouTube or something like that, but that's another story. But she never studied or learned it. She started living into it. Now for all of you, my take over here is, why don't you start living into your subjects? It is beyond reading, it is beyond studying, it is beyond even learning. Start living into your subjects. Even if you're programming, there are whole loads of observations around you which can teach you programming. There are whole loads of happenings around you which you can bind, which you can correlate with any subject in this world. Thus, you live into a subject by just simply your observations. And believe me, I always say, your observation with a correlation of the basic concepts will change your life, because start seeing the things differently and you'll become a person living into a subject rather than actually studying or learning that particular subject. I've done this throughout my life, and that is what I wanted to present or put across today. Thank you very much.